Hello everyone, welcome to Radio Lenta, or Slow Radio in English version. Today we're speaking in English. We have a guest who was with us in the last podcast called Manu Brazo, and because he's living in London, we are going to enjoy this time also with him in English. And of course, Michael Thomas, he born in England, so he will have no problem to have this conversation in English. Maybe I will struggle a little bit, and also Juan Velázquez, our friend in Vienna, is familiarized? I don't know how to say this, but he will use English pretty good, maybe better than me at the moment. So, welcome Michael, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Enjoying listening to your brilliant English, Pablo.
No, please
very good,
stop.
Very good.
Stop.
You know, the problem with my English is, after so many years living in Seville, I think I've lost a lot of English, so you have to wish me luck as well.
Okay.
Anyway.
So also welcome to Juan, which is...
Hi, Juan.
Which is listening at the moment, yeah, I think.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Pablo.
Hello. And
also... Vienna.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah?
In a perfect quarantine too.
Oh, yeah.
The lockdown, yeah? The good lockdown.
Yes,
the lockdown.
I heard that in Europe and also Austria, Vienna is also... this week is going to be easier. Many businesses are opening, also in Germany. Like,
yes,
things are
we're
getting
going
softer.
to be more flexible.
Yeah.
So we have not to keep in home yet, because yes, we are going to be more in the street. So we have to bring mask, or I don't know how to say, but so máscaras.
Yeah.
Masks. Yes.
Mask. Yes. So yes, that's our reality yet now.
Okay.
Nice. And also here with us, Manu Brazo. Hello, how are you?
Hello, nice to hear you again.
So,
hey, Manu.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing? Is everything fine with the quarantine?
Yes, it's fine. We've had quite a few days of rain, so it hasn't mattered that much being indoors. But now the sun has come out again, and let's see how we manage. But from Monday, in Spain, children are allowed to go out with their parents. But they're allowed to go out.
For how long? For an hour, or is it going to be like as long as they want?
I don't know. I think it's a limited time. But how are they going to restrict that? It's going to be really difficult to make sure that people aren't abusing the freedom, But
that's
anyway.
right.
Well, so we're here in lockdown, and we have a lockdown playlist from our guest today, who's an artist gaining lots of awards and recognition in the UK. He's doing interviews on the BBC, and not in your usual instrument, his awards or recognition, not in violin or piano or as a tenor or something. He's a saxophonist, and he's from Sevilla. And Manu, how are you enjoying life in the UK?
Well, so at the moment we are, I think, is a bit of like the opposite of that. What you have in Spain. We have a really, really sunny weather. Yeah. And it makes it's nice, but it makes the lockdown a bit more difficult because you want to go outside. And I think it's nice to have some sun anyway. But well, anyway, thank you very much for presenting me like that. And I want some stuff, but now everything is stopped. So it's difficult. We don't have concerts, we don't have awards anymore.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see when we'll get back to normal.
Yes, I would imagine that musicians all around the world are feeling the same as that, and a chance to perform other than on videos on the internet. And what about the BBC? How did it come about that you were interviewed and performed on the BBC? How did that happen?
Oh, that was a nice story. It was actually a lot of luck because I found a place that was called BBC Introducing, and they leave some space for artists to upload some music, and then they just listen to some of them, like any kind of music. And somehow they listened to the first track I uploaded there, and they liked it, and they broadcasted it was Pequeña Charda by the Spanish composer Pedro Iturralde, for saxophone and piano, and they broadcasted it. I think it was like 2 years ago or so, in 2018. And after that, I've been there a couple of times to be interviewed and to be playing live, which is
on the In Tune program, or
on In Tune program in BBC Radio 3, which is a lot of pressure.
And it's a very important program.
It is.
So I would imagine it is a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure. And the first time that I went there, it was my first time being in such a big studio, and a professional, of course professional, but with an amazing piano, really bad acoustics because it's really dry.
Absolutely.
So then you were playing there with no sound feedback at all. It was like, I wanted to cry for them just trying doing the sound check, but then luckily everything went well.
And they on that In Tune program, do they have a playlist as well? Do you play pieces that you want, or do they tell you what to play? Or
the couple of times I went there, I could play whatever I wanted to do, but usually I think they invite people because they want to share some stories, or they want to share some specific music. The music I chose, they liked it, and they wanted me to play that. And I did a really, really short interview the second time, and the first time was a bit longer because it was the first time I was interviewed as a BBC Introducing artist.
Yeah. Well, on our program here, we give our artists the chance to choose pieces that they maybe haven't played, and you're not playing for us tonight. But what would your first choice be for music to help people through this lockdown, Manu?
Yeah, so the other day I didn't choose any piece related to the saxophone, to my instrument. Yeah. So today I wanted to show some music that actually shows how the instrument sounds and what is the music that we have. So, well, the first piece I've chosen is Adolf Busch Saxophone Quintet, the second movement, and it's a beautiful piece for saxophone and string quartet.
The Adolf Busch of the Busch Quartet.
Yeah. He was an amazing violin player, and luckily he liked the saxophone, and he played a lot with clarinet with his quartet. He played the Brahms Quintet many times in all all over the world, and he liked the sound of the saxophone when he was in America. So he decided to compose this quintet, which actually was the first chamber music piece, which was with strings for saxophone. So it's so historically it's really important for us, and it was because at that time the saxophone was a really basic instrument, and the people who played the instrument were also not as good as now, because it was such a new instrument. And he wrote in a language like it was really similar to the clarinet language, but it worked so well for saxophone that now is one of our main chamber music pieces. So
have you played it?
I have actually, and it's the saxophone part. Well, the quartet part is really difficult because he played it with his quartet. And the first violin, the leader, the part is so difficult because he wrote him for the part for himself. And he could play anything. So
well, let's listen to it. Adolf Busch Saxophone Quintet. It's the second movement we're going to hear. Is that right,
Second
Manu?
movement, the Scherzo Allegretto Vivo.
Great. Well, that's a really difficult piece. My goodness. You know, I have an anecdote about Adolf Busch, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if you know this, Juan, but Adolf Busch was a student of Joseph Joachim, and he used to turn the pages when Joachim was playing with none other than Johannes Brahms, when they were playing Brahms sonatas together. And Busch, as a young man, would turn the pages for Brahms. And so I've got a recording of Busch's version of the G major sonata by Brahms. Know it. Yeah, the first sonata. And there's an interesting bit, you know, where it goes back to the main theme again, where there's a little bridge passage that goes dee da 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 dee da 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 dee 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 da da dum dee da 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 bob. That bit, yeah. Well, in the Brahms score, he puts the word calando. Yeah, and calando for most musicians now means a bit like morendo and retardando, just holding back and maybe doing a diminuendo.
Like a fade out of tempo, yes.
Yeah, exactly, a fade out of in tempo as well. Mm-hmm. And in this version, Busch's version, or I think it's with Serkin playing the piano, he does an accelerando back into the main theme. So he does Now he heard Brahms and Joachim playing that piece, so one can only assume that that's how they played that, which makes you think that maybe Brahms understood by calando more like the word in Spanish, which is cayendo, falling into a new tempo, and which would change the entire history of music, really, because if you think of the calando in the last movement of the First Symphony, for instance, that is a place where everyone does an enormous retardando, and then it's where there's the climax of the whole movement, and the brass comes back where dee da da ram, with that big theme again. And just before they get back to the a tempo, which is the second subject, dee da da dum, dee da da dum, dee da 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 dum, they do. All conductors do a retardando, but Brahms writes calando, which makes me think that what he intended was an accelerando back to tempo primo.
Yeah, so sometimes the language changed everything, and
Yeah.
I think the composer played very differently than we understand today because of. Have you listened to some music with Rachmaninoff playing at piano?
No, I haven't.
No, so he plays really different as we think today. So a lot of people play Rachmaninoff like the most of the times with really strictly metronome marks and so.
Yes.
And Rachmaninoff played like really romantic piano.
Wow.
It sounds like he moves a lot of the time, and he makes something that all we know, like really recognizable. He makes really different. So a lot of composers played very differently than we understand today, and that's.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because in Japan, in Tokyo, in a museum there, I saw a pianola that was a recording of Debussy playing, and I think it was La Plus que Lente, which is a slow waltz by Debussy. And what amazed me listening to this pianola recording was that it was incredibly full of rubatos. The tempo was always changing. And I think you're right. Nowadays, we tend to do quite strict readings of music that wasn't ever maybe intended to be played so strictly. And what do you think, Manu?
I'm sure that if we could listen to some Mozart music played by Mozart himself, it will be the same. It will be the same, and we believe that Mozart music in general has to be really with the tempo and with the speed has to be really clear and really balanced all the way through. And I'm sure he was a virtuoso, right? At his time, and I'm sure he could play everything as fast as possible. Probably he did sometimes just to show off. And the same with Beethoven and with all these composers that. So music is conceived in a way, but it changes, right? And we have the idea of the version they printed, but it doesn't really mean that the music should be like that. So
I think another interesting angle to that is that composers hear their music while they are composing again and again and again, so they don't need all the corners that we put as interpreters into their music, and the tempo in general doesn't have to be as slow as we sometimes feel it should be. And and talking of Brahms, I mean, everyone for at least the last 50 years has been performing Brahms with lots of vibrato. And he said in a letter, he said once that he had just heard a performance of his first string quartet. And he said, it was amazing. In the slow movement, all the four instruments played a phrase with vibrato at the same time. It was incredible. So the implication is that he didn't expect people to play his music with vibrato unless he wrote dolce or
espressivo.
Exactly. And not just that, but we have this idea about Brahms that probably comes from Karajan, that you have to play Brahms with lots and lots of space. And I wonder thereby whether that's true as well. Maybe we've misinterpreted Brahms for decades. I don't know.
Also,
difficult to answer.
Sorry, if I can add something here. Sorry, I really like this subject because not just how we listen to music that was written a long time ago in everything that you said. Also, how the orchestra or the musician used to tune their instruments varied during the years. And for example, nowadays we listen everything in 440 hertz, and before, in Italy was 432, in Vienna was 444, something like that, because it was not a scientifically measured, so sounds were also different, and the feelings that that music give. That's it. That's the only thing that I wanted to say.
And the farther away we go back in time, for example, it's impossible to tell how Bach really wanted his music to be played. And there are so many debates of if this is too romantic, if this is too straight, this is too fast, too slow. Sometimes it just depends on the fashion of the time, really. And the same music would be played in a way probably by Bach 20 years before and 20 years later. So it's really flexible, and I think that we should be flexible with that as well, knowing that there is no a fixed version for anything, and at least that we don't know.
It is true that industrialization has changed the way of understanding art. So how we produce art and how we make music. So I think so. I remind that there are theories that there has been a failure to understand metronome marking since Beethoven. So and actually we should play much lower than we do today. So I think so. How was the name? I think that theory was the half beat theory or the half hertz theory. I don't know. I don't remember. I cannot remind. But it is supported by a Belgian musicologist. So you can find it on YouTube. So the name is Authentic Sound, glaube ich. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a theory that it defends that we are understanding not really good the metronome marking. So we have
from Beethoven.
Yeah, since Beethoven. Okay. So, yeah. So,
well, once we move into the later 20th century, even earlier than that, we find composers like Bartók who not only gave very precise metronome marks, but he actually puts over the music score how many seconds a phrase should take to be played or a passage should take to be played. And what about the next composer we're going to listen to, Manu? Is Copland as strict with tempi as Bartók was at around the same time, or?
Well, I've never performed any music by Copland, so I think you might be able to tell better than I do if he was that strict, or if probably we can be more precise with what he wrote, because everything it was written in a modern time, and there are recordings of him playing that, so we can actually play the way he wanted it to be played, right?
Yes.
So in this case, I chose my second piece is Clarinet Concerto by Copland, the American composer, and this concerto is just, I mean, I discovered the music by Copland not many years ago, like 4 or 5 years, and I had never listened to anything from him before. And the moment I listened to the first piece, I think it was Appalachian Spring.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I was in love with his music, completely in love with his music. So then, since that, that mixed with that, I love Martin Frost, the clarinet player that plays this version of Copland's Clarinet Concerto. You have something. It's just magic when you listen to something like this. It's the harmonies and you can see all the images he wanted to show. And this concerto was written for Benny Goodman, really famous American clarinet player.
Yes. Who Bartók wrote for in his contrasts as well. The contrasts by Bartók is for Benny Goodman, yeah.
Oh, was it for him as well?
Yeah, and Bartók played it with him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Me too.
That's amazing. So there is a lot of jazz in this concerto, but especially in the, I think more than the first movement is on the second movement and in the cadenza. But still, we have some really, really rich harmonies in this first movement, and it's just like listen to an image of the piece itself.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Let's listen to that then, Pablo. there we are. That's the end of the first movement. That's Copeland there with the clarinet of Martin Frost. Copeland accompanying the clarinet with strings and a string orchestra and harp and piano, I think.
Yeah, I think it has piano. I'm not sure, but for sure harps and strings.
And it's important for you, I think, the music with strings. I noticed with the Bush, with the string quartet, and the Copeland accompanied by a string orchestra, and so you're particularly fond of violins, are you, Manu?
Well, I think most of the most beautiful repertoire was written for strings, and sadly for winds for us. But it is, and I love, especially when you have something like as beautiful as this for an orchestra. And together you put a clarinet on top of that, played so beautifully, and it makes the perfect mix.
I'm sure it helps having your girlfriend at home playing the violin as brilliantly as she does. So call out to Claudia there.
No, but it does. You have made string musicians want to be wind musicians in the 20th century. So
yes,
in music like jazz and so I would like to be a saxophonist if I were a jazz musician.
Yeah. Well, I noticed in that music that it was really good for anyone who's feeling anxious in the lockdown, or anxious about how their job's going to be after the lockdown, if they're going to have a job and everything. And I think music definitely has a part to play in our lives, almost a medicinal part.
It does, yeah.
It helps people to get out of the problems they may be having in their lives. And
it's always been a therapy in so many ways, right? And they say that one of the best medicines that you can take is to do music with other people, together with other music, and there are so many parts of the brain activating we don't exactly know what they do, but we start to segregate good hormones and to feel good, and all the problems go. That happens listening to music as well.
Yeah. So I was listening to that music, and I was thinking of open spaces like in New England, or up in the north of America, where Copeland was getting a lot of his inspiration for Appalachian Spring, as you mentioned, and you played recently, I think, with in the Snape Maltings near Aldborough in Suffolk. Is that right? How was that experience? Because that's right in the heart of the Suffolk countryside, and there's suddenly a beautiful concert hall. Was that an amazing experience?
That was the most beautiful town I've ever been.
Wow!
It's surrounded by the beach and by the countryside, really green countryside, and full of lakes, full of forests, and it's just beautiful. And then in the middle of nowhere, really, it's just a small town with 2 or 3 fish and chips shops. And that's it. And then you have the House of Britain in there, where he lived with Peter Pierce, and
the Red House.
Yeah. The Red House, and they say they have all these stories about him and about them in the town. The first time I went to his house, the week I was in there, there was this guy speaking about some anecdotes of the concert, and in one of them he started crying a tiny bit, like because the church in which they were meant to play a symphony and to premiere a symphony by Britain was started burning the night before the concert,
Oh, yes.
So they couldn't do the festival, they couldn't do the concert, and in just one day they rehearsed in a different place, and they rebuilt. They built something like a concert hall in just one day while rehearsing this composition.
Isn't that amazing?
And he told me I was in the orchestra when Britain was conducting the orchestra, and I was the the leader horn player in there.
Wow!
And I was so shocked that the history is so near to us, so close, and
absolutely
in such a beautiful place at the same time. That it was a really, really good experience.
And you were working with fantastic artist, a fantastic conductor, Marin Alsop.
Yeah. See,
how was that?
Well, that was as impressive, if not more, than the story that I just told.
Yeah.
And she musically, like we were playing Romeo and Juliet, and I think it's one of the most amazing. Like it looks all the time like it can be as beautiful and as delicate as the like no other piece can be. Yeah. And also at some point it looks like the concert hall is going to fall in pieces just because of the fortes of the brass and all those things. Yeah. Especially in Snape Maltings, you have like a really reverberant acoustics.
Yeah.
So,
but it's not too reverberant.
No.
It's a really nice acoustic.
It's really nice, but just loud enough to be impressive when you were playing with all that huge brass section playing those things.
In a way, Juan, it's like the Musikverein of England, the Snape Maltings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's all wooden, the structure, and that that's why it burnt to the ground originally. And have you ever been to that part of England, Juan? Or
no, never. So I wish to be there, but I have not been in England yet.
Yeah. It's all very flat, not like Austria at all. That part of England is very flat with marshlands, and I think Britain was absolutely fascinated by the bird life that he could see there, and hear more than ever. So he was writing, he wrote pieces that imitated the birds, like his one of the movements of his string quartet, his third string quartet, and Curlew River, and he almost like Lautabara, he brings in bird song into his music, as did Messiaen as well. And but the whole place, as Manu was saying, is just amazing. It's like something out of a children's
fairy tale.
story.
Yeah.
It is amazing because after the Impressionist composer had a predilection for colors, and in this case, Copland has like a really, really clear predilection for landscapes and colors too.
Yes.
So it reminds me like, do you know the Pines of Rome from Ottorino Respighi? So that's kind of colors of landscapes. So something really, really.
It's the way they describe, right? It's a really linear way, but it's so colorful at the same time, and you have all these peaks inside of the same kind of shape, which make the music really, really rich. It happens the same with Vaughan Williams, for example, or Elgar in many ways as well. It has to do something with the landscape they grow up in, I think.
I think so. I'm getting too homesick listening to things about England. Tell us about your next piece, Manu.
Well, the next piece is something completely different, and there is a lot of party in it, I think. So there is this. It's a piece for cello and clarinet as well, performed by Martin Frost. It couldn't be by anyone else. And it's by the Swedish composer Svante Henriksson. I think it's pronounced like this. He's a jazz player. He's a double bass player and an electric bass in in heavy metal groups, jazz groups, and also he's an amazing classical cellist.
Wow.
And he has really, really nice music in which he mixes all kind of styles and genres. So in this piece, which was originally written for cello and soprano saxophone, you have a lot of jazz, a lot of popular Swedish music, I suppose, because it sounds like folk music as well. And sometimes you don't. It's really difficult to separate the sound of the clarinet from the sound of the cello. And I want you to hear it, because if you don't know it, you're going to be amazed, I think.
Wow. We're all dancing here next to our computer screens. My goodness. So do you use that sort of music, Manu, in your recitals with piano? Do you like that sort of thing to get the audience more involved in your music?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why. Well, apart from that, Martin Frost is an amazing player, but he chooses so well the music he plays. It's really easy to like him, and it's really easy to like the music he does. So I first, when I discovered him many years ago, I was like, I want to be like Martin Frost. so that's not happening, but
oh yes, it is.
but,
it is.
but I would like to take that part of his way of thinking as an artist more than as a musician and to incorporate it in my playing and in my way of planning recitals and planning concertos. And I think it's really important to always think about the people that without an audience it really wouldn't make sense, right? To make music. So
yeah. And do you talk to your audience in recitals, and do you introduce the pieces and try to make more contact with them that way as well, or?
Yeah. I think that's really important as well, because when you're playing for musicians, you can. So usually they like it as well. It depends on who's listening, but I think it's really important to set a guide or some landmarks in which the audience can reflect and can see the story and can see maybe some techniques, or can understand some things without having to know music. I think it's really important.
Manu, sorry, go on, Juan. I'll try and shut the dog up.
So it seems that much of your repertoire is transcriptions. So you normally you play a lot of transcriptions, not music for your instrument at the beginning. So my question is, are you tempted to create new music for saxophone?
I am tempted, but I think it would be so bad that I'm not tempted anymore.
Why?
So
I tried to.
No, well,
you mean? I don't think. Do you mean that he composes new music, Juan, or that he gets?
Yes. So because of it seems that much of the repertoire is transcriptions from other instruments. So my question is, Michael, if he is tempted to create new music for the saxophone.
Yeah.
Well, I am in different ways. I haven't tried the composition yet, but I will be a bit. I have so much respect for composers that it will really take a lot of time and a lot of thought to do something like that. But I try to do new transcriptions every year to add like at least 2 or 3 to my repertoire that no one has done before. And also I usually, when I find a composer that I like, or a piece that I like, I try of a living composer, I try to speak to them and to either arrange the piece for saxophone or compose something for saxophone. And it depends. Sometimes they want to do it. Sometimes they are happy just arranging the piece. And that's how, at least so far, I am trying to help the saxophone repertoire, which is limited. It's not too limited now, but we don't have classical repertoire or like really romantic repertoire, so it's quite limited in a way.
And you're playing concerts with someone from my hometown. You're playing with Brian Evans, is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing pianist.
That's right. So, actually, the next piece, the first time I performed it was with him at the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh,
and he's such an amazing pianist that is so nice to play with musicians that are much better than you, because you learn so much from them. And if you don't mind, I would like to introduce the next piece now that I'm speaking about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the last piece I wanted to choose for my playlist this time was Devil's Rock, about which is a ragtime, and but a bit different. So we all know the story of Paganini and how he sold his soul to the devil in order to get superhuman abilities, and in this case the ragtime is called Devil's Rock, and it's kind of a metaphor of like you need superhuman abilities to play this this ragtime. And it's originally written for saxophone and piano, but because of the lockdown, I had to do something with it, and I it was thanks to my girlfriend, to Claudia. She arranged the piece for 4 violins and saxophone, and we recorded it in here. We have a little studio, home studio, and so that's what we are going to hear now.
Fantastic. Let's listen.
All right. But just before, I'm sorry, I am coming here to say that we are running out of time. So the thing is, if you want to say anything else about this song we are about to listen, it's your time. We are going to leave it for as a goodbye of this podcast. So let us know if you want to say anything else.
I think I just wanted to listen to it and to find, I hope everyone liked the music I proposed this time, and I hope they can find a lot of music to make this lockdown a bit easier.
Nice. So this is a goodbye for everyone here. Thank you again, everyone who is doing this possible. Michael, Juan, and Manu. Thank you very much for do this second podcast with us in English version. And tell us again, which song are we gonna listen?
So we are going to listen to Devil's Rock by Gian Matitia.
Let's hear it.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.